The lunch rush was in full swing at the small downtown restaurant. Plates clattered, waiters hurried between tables, and the sound of soft chatter mixed with the scent of roasted chicken and fresh bread. It was the kind of place where people came for a quick meal and a quiet moment away from the noise of the city. But for Maria, it was just another long day. She had been working at the restaurant for almost 5 years. The uniform she wore had faded slightly at the edges, and her shoes had seen better days, but she kept a polite smile for every customer who walked in. Her hands moved quickly as she wiped tables and carried trays. But behind her calm face, her mind was always somewhere else, thinking about her daughter, Lily. Lily was 13 and full of dreams that seemed too big for the small apartment they lived in. Every night after homework, she would pull out her old violin, its wood scratched and strings slightly worn, and she would play until the neighbors gently knocked on the wall, signaling it was bedtime. The violin wasn't new. It had been a gift from her school music teacher who saw her potential, but it was Lily's most prized possession. That afternoon, Maria had left her daughter sitting on the bench outside the restaurant with her violin case beside her. Lily often waited there, sketching or reading while her mother worked. Sometimes when the day was slow, Maria would sneak outside to bring her a small snack or check on her. It wasn't ideal, but Maria had no one to watch her while she worked double shifts. Inside, one of the tables was being set for a group of businessmen. The manager, nervous as always, whispered to the staff, "Be extra careful with this one. That's Mr. Anderson, the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the city." Maria nodded. She had seen all types of customers, but she knew this kind required extra patience. The group entered, dressed sharply in suits, their watches gleaming under the warm lights. Mr. Anderson, a tall man with silver hair and confident posture, looked around the restaurant with an air of control. He was used to being served, used to people rushing to meet his expectations. Maria approached the table with her notepad and gentle smile. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Can I start you off with something to drink?" They ordered quickly: coffee, sparkling water, and a bottle of the restaurant's best wine. Mr. Anderson barely looked at her as he spoke, his focus already back on his phone. Maria wrote down the order carefully and went to the counter. She was used to being invisible in moments like this, though it still stung sometimes. As the meal went on, the group discussed business in low but firm voices. Words like merger, investment, and quarterly results filled the air. Maria refilled glasses and brought plates with practiced grace. She wasn't listening closely, but every now and then, she caught a glimpse of their world, a world far removed from her own. When the main dishes were served, Mr. Anderson leaned back in his chair and finally looked around. "This place is quieter than I expected," he said, his tone half amused. "No music, no background noise. Feels almost too serious," one of his colleagues laughed. "Maybe we need a live performance. A violinist, perhaps?" Maria smiled politely as she placed another plate on the table. "My daughter plays violin," she said softly, without really thinking about it. It was a mother's pride slipping out. Mr. Anderson raised an eyebrow. "Your daughter plays?" "Yes," Maria replied, her smile growing a little. "She practices every day. She loves it." The CEO chuckled, not unkindly, but with the kind of humor people have when they don't expect to be taken seriously. "Well then," he said, glancing at his team, "maybe she can play something for us right here. I could use a bit of live entertainment before the next meeting." Maria blinked, unsure if he was serious. His tone was light, almost joking. She hesitated, feeling a rush of embarrassment. "Oh, I don't think. She's just a beginner," she said quickly. Mr. Anderson smiled faintly, picking up his glass. "I'm sure she's great. Let her play a song, why not? We could all use a break." The others at the table laughed softly, enjoying the playful suggestion. Maria's cheeks grew warm. She didn't want her daughter to be laughed at or treated like a novelty. But part of her also knew that Lily would love the chance to play for someone. Anyone. "Only if you're sure," Maria said carefully. The CEO nodded, still smiling as if it were all harmless fun. "Of course. Go on, bring her in." Maria walked quickly toward the door, her heart beating faster. She found Lily sitting on the bench outside, legs swinging lightly as she hummed a tune under her breath. The violin case was open beside her. "Sweetheart," Maria said softly, kneeling beside her. "Do you remember that man I was serving earlier? The one at the big table?" Lily nodded, her curious eyes following her mother's anxious face. He wants to hear you play something, Maria said carefully. Just one song. Only if you want to. Lily's eyes widened. He wants me to play? Here, inside? Maria hesitated. It's just for fun, I think. You don't have to. But if you'd like to, I'll be right there with you. For a moment, Lily said nothing. Then she nodded slowly, gripping the handle of her violin case. I can do it, she whispered, her voice small but firm. They walked inside together, drawing the attention of several customers. The girl stood beside her mother, holding her violin close to her chest. Mr. Anderson smiled in amusement. So this is the famous violinist? He said lightly. Lily nodded politely, her cheeks pink. Maria could tell she was nervous, but there was a quiet determination in her eyes that made her proud. Well then, the CEO said, leaning back in his chair, let's hear what you've got. Lily placed her violin under her chin, took a deep breath, and closed her eyes. The restaurant grew unusually quiet. The clinking of silverware stopped and conversations faded. Even the staff paused behind the counter, curious about what was happening. For a brief second, Maria's heart tightened with worry. What if Lily's hand shook? What if the strings squeaked or the bow slipped? What if they laughed? But then Lily drew the bow across the strings and the first note floated into the air, soft, clear, and trembling with emotion. The sound seemed to touch something inside everyone in the room. Mr. Anderson's expression changed slightly, though he didn't say a word. The melody continued, each note stronger than the last, telling a story that no words could. It was the sound of hope, struggle, and love, all the feelings that Maria had carried quietly through her long days and sleepless nights. Maria stood near the table, hands clasped together, watching her daughter play. For that brief moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped moving. When the last note faded, there was silence, deep, stunned silence. Then someone began to clap. Another joined. Within seconds, the whole restaurant erupted in warm applause. Lily lowered her violin, her cheeks flushed but glowing. She looked at her mother, and Maria's eyes filled with tears. She had never felt prouder. Mr. Anderson sat there, no longer smiling with amusement, but with something else, something softer. He didn't know what to say yet, but the expression on his face said everything. What had started as a passing joke had turned into a moment none of them would forget. Maria reached for her daughter's hand and squeezed it gently. In her heart, she knew that something had changed, even if she didn't yet understand how much. And as the applause continued, a quiet thought crossed Mr. Anderson's mind. A thought that would soon lead to a decision capable of changing both their lives forever. The restaurant was still filled with the sound of applause when Lily lowered her violin. The customers who had been chatting a few minutes earlier were now smiling, some even standing up to clap for the young girl. For a moment, it didn't feel like an ordinary afternoon in a small restaurant. It felt like something special had happened. Maria stood near the table, her heart beating fast. She wasn't used to attention like this. She had only wanted to give her daughter a small moment to shine. But she could see that Lily had touched everyone in the room. Lily looked around, her face glowing with a mix of shyness and pride. Her small fingers still trembled from holding the bow, but her eyes sparkled. She wasn't used to people watching her play. Most of the time she practiced alone in their apartment, with only her mother listening through the thin walls. Now strangers were cheering for her and she didn't quite know what to do. She smiled nervously and gave a small bow, which only made the crowd clap louder. Mr. Anderson sat at the head of the table, his hands still resting on the edge of his chair. He had started clapping slowly, almost out of politeness, but now his expression had changed. His eyes, which usually showed nothing but confidence and business-like focus, seemed softer. There was something about the girls playing that reminded him of something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of wonder. He leaned back, watching as Maria wrapped an arm around her daughter. The woman's eyes were wet with tears she didn't try to hide. He could see that this wasn't just a proud moment for her. It was a piece of her life that she worked so hard for. The girl's talent wasn't something taught in fancy schools or polished by private tutors. It was real, raw, and full of emotion. The people at the other tables started talking again, but their voices carried a new kind of warmth. A few customers came up to say kind things, how beautiful the music had been, how brave Lily was to play in front of everyone. One elderly man even pressed a small bill into Maria's hand, saying softly, For her strings, she's going to need good ones. Maria tried to refuse, but the man insisted, smiling kindly before walking away. Mr. Anderson cleared his throat and said, "That was unexpected." He looked at Lily with a smile that wasn't mocking anymore. "You play very well, young lady." "Thank you, sir," Lily said quietly. Her voice was almost a whisper, but it carried across the room. Mr. Anderson nodded, still thoughtful. "How long have you been playing?" "About 3 years," she said. "I learned from videos online, and sometimes my music teacher helps me after school." "Online?" he repeated, surprised. "No lessons?" Lily shook her head. "We can't really afford them, but I love the violin, so I just practice." Maria shifted awkwardly, not wanting to draw too much attention to their situation. "She practices every day," she said with a small smile. "Morning, night?" Even when I tell her to rest, the CEO smiled faintly. "That kind of dedication is rare," he said. "You should be proud." "I am," Maria said, her voice trembling slightly. "She's the reason I work so hard." Something about those words stayed in his mind. He had built an empire through years of relentless effort, but he couldn't remember the last time he had felt that kind of love behind what he did. His life was about numbers, meetings, and contracts, everything measured, everything planned. This small family, with nothing but a violin and hope, had reminded him of something pure and honest. The restaurant slowly returned to its usual rhythm. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the soft music from the speakers, all of it started again. But something had changed in the air. Mr. Anderson watched as Maria thanked the customers who spoke to her daughter. He noticed the way Lily carefully placed her violin back in its old case, treating it like treasure. He could see how worn it was, the edges chipped, the strings uneven. Yet, when she had played, none of that mattered. After a few minutes, Maria came over to the CEO's table to thank him for letting her daughter play. "I hope we didn't disturb your meal," she said, trying to sound professional again. "She just loves to share her music," Mr. Anderson smiled. "Disturb? Not at all. I think you made everyone's day a little better." Maria blushed slightly. "That's kind of you to say." He looked at Lily again. "You should keep playing," he told her. "Don't stop. You have something special." Lily nodded, clutching her violin case tightly. "I won't," she said softly. When they left the table, the men sitting with Mr. Anderson started to talk again, but this time it wasn't about business. "She's talented," one of them said. "You could see the passion in her playing." Mr. Anderson agreed quietly, but his mind was still elsewhere. He thought about the girl's determination, about the mother who worked 2 jobs to support her. He thought about the way they both carried themselves, not with pride or pity, but with quiet strength. It stayed with him long after they left his table. Outside, the evening light had begun to fade. The city buzzed with life, cars honking and people rushing home. Maria and Lily walked together down the narrow street, their hands brushing now and then. Maria's shift wasn't over yet, but her manager had seen how much the performance had lifted everyone's mood and told her to take a short break. They sat on a bench outside, sharing a sandwich Maria had saved from lunch. Lily looked tired but happy. "Do you think he liked it?" she asked between bites. Maria smiled gently. "I think everyone liked it, sweetheart. You played beautifully." Lily's face brightened. "He didn't look mean like I thought he would. At first I was scared, but when I started playing, I just forgot." Maria nodded. "That's because you love it. When you play, nothing else matters." The girl looked at her violin case, her fingers tracing the worn handle. "I wish I had a better one," she said quietly. "This one's okay, but sometimes the strings sound strange." Maria's chest tightened. "I know," she said softly. "Maybe one day we'll get you a new one." Lily smiled as if she believed it without question. "One day," she repeated. Back inside, Mr. Anderson had finished his meal, but he wasn't ready to leave. Something about what had just happened made him want to stay a little longer. He called for the bill, and when Maria returned to the table, he slipped a folded note inside the receipt holder before handing it back. "Thank you for the wonderful service," he said simply, "and tell your daughter she has a gift. Don't let her stop." Maria thanked him again, unaware of what he had done. When she later opened the holder, she found a generous tip, far more than she had ever received before. But it wasn't the money that made her heart skip. It was the note that came with it. It read, "Talent like hers deserves a chance. Keep believing in her." That night, when Maria and Lily got home, they sat at the small kitchen table and opened the note together. The handwriting was neat and strong. Maria read it aloud, and Lily's eyes grew wide. "Do you think he really meant it?" the girl asked softly. Maria smiled, tears in her eyes. "I think he did." They sat in silence for a while, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. Then Lily got up, opened her violin case, and began to play again. The sound filled their little home, gentle and full of life. Maria leaned back, closing her eyes. She could still see the faces in the restaurant, still hear the applause. Neither of them knew it yet, but that small performance, what started as a joke, was the beginning of something much bigger. Something that would soon change the course of their lives in ways they couldn't imagine. That night, as Maria tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "You made me so proud today." Lily smiled sleepily. "Do you think I can really be a musician one day, Mama?" Maria brushed her hair back gently. "I don't just think it," she said softly. "I know it." As the little girl drifted to sleep, Maria stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, a powerful man had been moved by her daughter's music. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. But for the first time in a long while, she let herself believe that miracles could still happen, and that sometimes they begin in the most ordinary of places, with the sound of a single violin. The morning after the restaurant performance, the city woke up like it always did. Cars honking, buses hissing, and people rushing to work. But for Maria and her daughter, the day felt different. There was still a warm feeling in their hearts, something light and hopeful that had followed them home from the restaurant. Lily woke up early and took out her violin before school, her fingers moving carefully over the strings. The sound was soft, gentle, and filled their tiny apartment with a sense of peace. Maria stood by the kitchen stove, frying eggs and humming along. Every time she looked at her daughter, she couldn't help but smile. "You really impressed everyone yesterday," she said as she placed breakfast on the table. Lily grinned. "Do you think he'll remember me?" "The man from the restaurant?" Maria asked. Lily nodded eagerly. "Yes, the one who asked me to play." Maria hesitated for a moment. "Maybe he will. But people like him meet so many others every day. It's okay if he doesn't." Lily shrugged, though her face showed a small hint of disappointment. "It's all right. I just hope he liked it." Maria smiled gently. "Oh, I'm sure he did. You made everyone listen, remember? That's something special." Lily brightened up again. "Then I'll keep practicing. Maybe one day I can play in a big hall with lights and everything." Maria laughed softly, brushing her daughter's hair back. "If anyone can make that happen, it's you." The day passed quickly after that. Maria went to work, cleaning tables and carrying trays like always. But this time, every time someone complimented her daughter's performance, her heart swelled with quiet pride. People she didn't even know came up to say kind words. "Your girl's got talent," one regular customer told her. "You should get her out there more." Maria thanked them all, though deep inside she wasn't sure how. Music lessons were expensive. Instruments cost money. Everything took time she barely had. Still, she refused to let worry take over. Hope, she decided, was worth holding on to. Meanwhile, across the city, Mr. Anderson sat in his office, staring at his computer screen, but his mind wasn't really on work. He had a view of the tall buildings through his glass window, but all he could think about was the young girl with the violin. The memory of her music still lingered in his head. It wasn't just her skill that moved him. It was the emotion behind every note. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen something so pure, so honest. Most people he met wanted something from him, money, approval, deals. But that girl? She had wanted nothing but to play. It reminded him of his own childhood years ago, before the world of business took over his life. He used to love the sound of music too. His mother had played piano in their small home, and he used to sit by her side, pretending to press the keys. Life had felt simpler then. As he thought about it, a quiet knock came at his door. His assistant stepped in. "Sir, your 2 o'clock meeting has been moved to 3. Would you like me to bring in the reports?" "Later," he said distractedly. Then after a moment he added, "Actually, can you find out something for me?" "Of course, sir. What do you need?" "The restaurant we visited yesterday, the one downtown. Can you call and get the waitress's name? The one who served us." The assistant nodded, slightly surprised but too professional to ask why. Right away. A few hours later, a note landed on his desk. Her name is Maria, it read, and her daughter's name is Lily. Mr. Anderson stared at the paper for a long moment. He didn't quite know what he wanted to do next, but something inside him wouldn't let it go. He wasn't sure if it was guilt for turning their moment into a joke or simply admiration for the girl's spirit. But he knew he had to do something. That evening, as Maria wiped down the counters near the end of her shift, the manager came over. "Hey, Maria," he said, looking at a note in his hand. "There's a call for you. Someone asked to speak with you personally." "Me?" she asked, confused. "Who would call me here?" The manager shrugged. "Didn't say, but it sounds important." She quickly dried her hands and picked up the phone. "Hello, this is Maria," a calm, familiar voice answered. "Good evening. I hope I'm not interrupting your work." Maria froze. She recognized that voice. It was Mr. Anderson. "Oh, hello, sir." "No, not at all. Is everything okay?" "Yes, everything's fine," he said. "I just wanted to tell you again how moved I was by your daughter's performance yesterday." "I haven't stopped thinking about it," Maria smiled nervously. "That's very kind of you. She'll be happy to hear that. I was wondering," he continued, "if she's ever had any formal lessons. Her talent is extraordinary." Maria hesitated. "No, sir. She teaches herself. We can't really afford lessons right now." There was a brief pause on the other end. "I see," he said slowly. "Would you allow me to help?" Maria blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. "Help? Yes," he said, his tone warm but serious. "I have a few connections in the arts community. I could arrange for her to meet someone, maybe get an evaluation from a real music teacher. No strings attached, just an opportunity." Her heart skipped. That's very generous, but I wouldn't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble at all," he said. "She deserves a chance. And I'd like to see where her talent can take her." Maria didn't know what to say. She had met many customers over the years, but none had ever shown this kind of kindness. "Thank you," she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you enough. Just let her keep playing," he said simply. "That's all the thanks I need." After the call, Maria stood there for a long time, holding the phone to her chest. She could hardly believe what had just happened. When she got home that night, she told Lily everything. At first, Lily's eyes grew wide with disbelief. "He really said that? He wants to help me." "Yes, sweetheart," Maria said with a trembling smile. "He said he knows people who can listen to you play." Lily jumped up, excitement spilling over. "Mama, maybe this is it. Maybe this is how I can really learn." Maria laughed, tears in her eyes. "Maybe it is, my love. Maybe it is." That weekend, they met Mr. Anderson again, but this time it wasn't in a restaurant. It was at a small music school tucked in a quiet part of the city. The walls were lined with instruments, and the sound of students practicing echoed through the hall. A kind-looking woman greeted them at the entrance. "You must be Lily," she said warmly. "Mr. Anderson told me all about you." "I'm Mrs. Bennett, one of the instructors here." Lily clutched her violin tightly. "Nice to meet you," she said shyly. Mrs. Bennett led them into a small practice room with a piano in the corner. "Why don't you play something for me?" she asked gently. Lily nodded. Her hands trembled a little, but she lifted her violin and began to play the same song she had performed at the restaurant. The music filled the small room, rising and falling like a story. When she finished, there was a long silence. Mrs. Bennett smiled.
"You have a beautiful gift," she said softly.
"And you taught yourself?" "Yes," Lily said quietly. The instructor turned to Mr. Anderson and Maria. "This child has something rare. She feels the music, not just plays it. With proper guidance, she could go very far." Maria felt her knees go weak with relief and pride. She looked at Mr. Anderson, who was smiling for the first time that day. "I told you she was special," he said quietly. From that day on, everything began to change little by little. Lily started taking lessons at the music school, her confidence growing with each week. Mr. Anderson insisted on covering the expenses, no matter how much Maria tried to refuse. He said it wasn't charity. It was an investment in something beautiful. Maria watched her daughter bloom in ways she'd never imagined. Every time she heard Lily play, the notes seemed brighter, stronger, more alive. And each time, she silently thanked the man who had once made a joke, but ended up changing their world. What began as a casual request in a busy restaurant had now turned into something much deeper, a connection born from kindness, faith and the magic of music. Neither Maria nor Lily could have imagined that their simple act of saying yes to one playful request would open doors to a new life filled with hope, promise, and melody. And somewhere deep inside, Mr. Anderson realized something too, that sometimes it isn't business deals or profits that leave a lasting mark. It's the moments when you choose to see the spark in someone else and help it shine. The weeks that followed were like a dream for Maria and her daughter. Every Saturday morning, Lily would wake up early, carefully pack her violin, and hurry to her music class with excitement shining in her eyes. The small music school had become her favorite place. The walls smelled of polished wood, and the soft sound of piano keys floated through the halls. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere. Maria would watch her through the glass door during lessons, unable to stop smiling. It was hard to believe that her daughter, who had once practiced quietly in a cramped apartment, was now playing in a real studio. Each time Lily came out of class, she had new songs to practice, new notes to learn, and more confidence than before. At home, their little apartment was now filled with music every evening. Even when Maria was tired from work, she didn't mind. The soft tunes from the violin made her forget the long hours at the restaurant and the sore feet from standing all day. Sometimes she'd sit by the window, close her eyes, and listen as her daughter played. The music reminded her that all their struggles were worth it. Mr. Anderson, true to his word, continued to support Lily quietly. He never made a show of it. Once in a while, he would stop by the school to check on her progress or speak with her instructor. He always carried himself with the same calm confidence. But whenever he talked about Lily's music, there was a different tone in his voice, softer, almost proud. Mrs. Bennett, the music teacher, often praised Lily's natural ability. "She doesn't just play," she told Maria one afternoon. "She tells a story every time her bow touches the strings. You can't teach that kind of feeling. It's something that comes from the heart." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "She's always been that way," she said quietly. "When she plays, I can feel what she's feeling even without words." One afternoon, while Lily practiced in her room, Maria sat at the kitchen table looking over her bills. The envelope from the electric company made her sigh, but when she heard the soft notes of the violin drifting through the door, she smiled. No matter how difficult things were, she knew her daughter's gift was something worth fighting for. Meanwhile, Mr. Anderson found himself thinking about them more often than he expected. His life had always been about work, meetings, reports, deadlines. But now, between all of that, his thoughts often wandered to the little girl and her music. He began to wonder if maybe he had been missing something important all along. One evening, after a long day at the office, he sat in his car and listened to an old recording of violin music on his phone. The sound took him back to that moment in the restaurant, the way the room had fallen silent, the way the music had touched something deep inside him. It reminded him of his late mother, who used to play piano in their small house. He had forgotten how much joy that sound used to bring him. The next weekend, he visited the music school again, this time with an idea in mind. He asked Mrs. Bennett if he could sit in on one of Lily's lessons. She agreed with a warm smile, saying Lily would be thrilled. When Lily saw him enter the room, her eyes widened. "You came," she said excitedly. Mr. Anderson smiled. "Of course. I wanted to hear how much you've learned." She laughed shyly. "I've been practicing a lot. Mrs. Bennett says I'm getting better at controlling my sound." "That's good to hear," he said kindly. "Would you play something for me?" Lily nodded eagerly and raised her violin. The moment she started playing, the room filled with warmth. The melody was gentle and full of feeling, as if she were speaking through the strings. When she finished, there was silence for a moment before Mr. Anderson softly clapped. "That was beautiful," he said sincerely. "You've improved so much." Lily smiled, blushing a little. "Thank you, sir. I love playing. It makes me feel free." He nodded thoughtfully. "That's exactly how it should feel." Mrs. Bennett watched the exchange quietly, her heart touched. It was clear to her that this man wasn't just a sponsor. He genuinely cared. After the lesson, Maria met them outside. She thanked Mr. Anderson again for everything he had done, but he stopped her with a small shake of his head. "You don't owe me thanks," he said gently. "You and your daughter remind me of something I'd forgotten. That life isn't just about work. It's about what moves us." Maria smiled softly. "I think her music moves everyone, sir." "Including me," he smiled back. "It does." A few weeks later, Mrs. Bennett approached Maria and Lily after class with exciting news. "The city is hosting a youth talent showcase," she said. "It's a big event. Students from all over will perform. I think Lily should take part." Lily's eyes widened. "Me, in front of all those people?" Mrs. Bennett nodded. "You're ready. You have something special to share." Maria's heart skipped a beat. The thought of her daughter performing on a real stage was both thrilling and terrifying. "Wouldn't it be too soon?" she asked. "Not at all," the teacher said. "Opportunities like this don't come often. She's ready for it." When they told Mr. Anderson about it, his face lit up with genuine excitement. "That's wonderful news," he said. "You have to do it, Lily." Lily bit her lip, nervous. "What if I make mistakes?" "Then you'll learn from them," he said gently. "No one great ever started perfect. Just be yourself and let the music speak." For the next few weeks, Lily practiced harder than ever before. She spent hours perfecting her piece, repeating every section until it sounded just right. Sometimes her fingers ached, but she never complained. Maria sat nearby, listening and cheering her on. The night before the showcase, Maria helped her iron a white dress they had borrowed from a neighbor. It was simple but beautiful. "You look like a real musician," Maria said proudly. Lily smiled shyly. "Do you think I'll do okay?" Maria touched her daughter's cheek gently. "You'll do more than okay. You'll make everyone proud." The next evening, the concert hall buzzed with excitement. Families filled the seats and young performers stood backstage tuning their instruments. Lily held her violin close, trying to calm her racing heart. She peeked through the curtain and saw Mr. Anderson sitting in the audience beside her mother. They both smiled up at her, giving her courage. When her turn came, the stage lights felt warm on her face. The announcer called her name and she stepped forward, her small figure looking delicate under the bright lights. For a brief moment, everything went quiet. Then she lifted her bow and began to play. The first note was soft and trembling, but as she continued, her confidence grew. The music flowed from her heart, filling the hall with something pure and beautiful. People leaned forward in their seats, drawn in by the emotion in her playing. It wasn't just sound, it was a story of hope, struggle, and love. Maria watched with tears in her eyes, clutching her hands together. Mr. Anderson sat beside her, completely still, his eyes fixed on the stage. When the final note faded, the room stayed silent for one long, magical moment. Then came the applause, loud, warm, and endless. Lily bowed, her face shining with pride and disbelief. Maria stood, clapping so hard her hands hurt. Mr. Anderson stood too, smiling proudly. He felt something deep inside, a mix of joy and gratitude. This young girl, who had entered his life by chance, had reminded him that success wasn't about money or power. It was about meaning, and the way one person's gift could touch others. After the performance, Lily ran into her mother's arms. "Did I do okay?" she asked breathlessly. Maria hugged her tightly. "You were perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." Mr. Anderson approached them with a proud smile. "You didn't just play well," he said softly. "You moved everyone in that room." Lily looked up at him, her eyes bright. "Thank you for helping me," she said. "I couldn't have done this without you." He shook his head. "No, Lily. You did this because you believed in yourself. I just gave you a small push." As they walked out of the hall that night, the city lights shimmered in the distance. Maria looked at her daughter, still glowing from the performance, and at the man who had changed their lives with one small act of kindness. She thought about how far they had come, from a quiet restaurant to a grand stage, and her heart filled with gratitude. Life, she realized, had a strange way of bringing people together. Sometimes it took just one unexpected moment to set everything in motion. And as Lily held her violin close, humming softly to herself, Maria knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey, one that would carry her daughter far beyond anything either of them had ever imagined. The night of the performance stayed in Maria's memory like a beautiful dream she didn't want to wake up from. Even days later, she could still hear the echo of applause, the bright lights on her daughter's face, and the sound of Lily's violin filling the hall. It was the proudest moment of her life. For the first time, she truly felt that all the long nights, all the double shifts, and all the quiet sacrifices had been worth it. Lily was different after that night, too. She carried herself with more confidence. She still practiced every day, but now there was a new spark in her eyes, a belief that maybe, just maybe, her dream could really come true. At school, her teachers and classmates congratulated her. Some of them had seen the video of her performance online. Someone from the audience had recorded it and shared it, and within a few days it had spread far beyond their small circle. People from different cities commented, praising her emotion and natural talent. Maria couldn't believe it when she saw the views climb higher and higher. "People all over are watching you play," she told her daughter one evening. Lily giggled. "That's crazy, Mama. I never thought that many people would listen to me." Maria smiled, brushing her daughter's hair away from her face. "They're listening because they can feel your heart in the music." Life began to shift in small but meaningful ways. The music school offered Lily more lessons without extra cost, saying they were proud to have her represent them. Her teacher, Mrs. Bennett, worked closely with her, helping her prepare for auditions and guiding her to improve her tone and stage presence. Mr. Anderson continued to quietly support them, but he never made them feel like they owed him anything. He attended a few of Lily's lessons, sometimes sitting quietly at the back, listening with that same thoughtful expression. He would occasionally offer small bits of encouragement, saying things like, "Remember, every great musician started where you are," or, "It's not about perfection, it's about passion." One afternoon, after a lesson, he asked Maria and Lily to meet him for coffee at a small cafe near the park. It was a simple place, filled with the smell of roasted beans and the sound of soft music in the background. Maria felt a little nervous. She wasn't sure what he wanted to talk about. When they arrived, he smiled warmly and waved them over. "I'm glad you came," he said as they sat down. "I wanted to talk about something important." Maria looked curious. "Is everything okay?" He nodded. "More than okay. I've been thinking about Lily's future. She's incredibly talented, and she needs a path that can help her grow. There's a youth orchestra program in the city that offers scholarships for gifted children. It's not easy to get in, but I believe she has a real chance." Lily's eyes widened. "An orchestra? Like a real one?" Mr. Anderson smiled. "Yes, a real one. They perform across the country. It would give you training, experience, and the chance to play with other musicians like you." Maria looked both amazed and uncertain. "That sounds incredible, but wouldn't it be expensive?" He shook his head. "If she earns a scholarship, everything will be covered. I can help with the application and the audition arrangements. I just need your permission." Maria glanced at her daughter, whose face was glowing with excitement. "Do you want to do it, sweetheart?" Lily nodded quickly. "Yes, I want to try." Maria turned back to Mr. Anderson, her voice soft with gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know how to express how much this means to us." He smiled. "Just seeing her succeed will be enough." The following weeks were filled with preparation. Lily practiced more than ever, working closely with Mrs. Bennett on her audition piece. It was a complex piece full of emotional highs and quiet moments, the kind of music that required not just skill but heart. Every evening, the sound of her violin filled the apartment, sometimes soft as a whisper, sometimes strong enough to make the windows vibrate. Maria supported her in every way she could. She cooked her favorite meals, encouraged her to rest, and reminded her that no matter the result, she had already achieved something extraordinary. Still, Maria could see the determination in her daughter's eyes. Lily wanted to prove herself. The day of the audition arrived sooner than they expected. The auditorium was large and bright, filled with nervous students clutching their instruments. Some were older, more experienced, wearing crisp uniforms from music academies. Lily stood among them in her simple dress, holding her worn violin case, trying not to feel out of place. Maria knelt beside her before she went in. "Just do what you always do, sweetheart. Play with your heart. That's what people feel." Lily nodded, taking a deep breath. "I'll make you proud, Mama." Inside, the judges sat behind a long table, their faces calm and serious. Lily stepped onto the small stage, her hands trembling slightly. She looked at the instrument in her hands, then closed her eyes and began to play. At first, her bow shook a little, but as the music flowed, her nerves faded away. The notes rose and fell like a gentle breeze, full of warmth and emotion. The room grew quiet. Even the judges leaned forward slightly, listening. There was something about the way she played, honest, pure, unpretentious, that touched everyone there. When she finished, the room stayed silent for a few seconds before one of the judges finally said, "Thank you." Outside, Maria and Mr. Anderson were waiting. Lily ran into her mother's arms, her heart racing. I think I did okay, she whispered. Maria hugged her tightly. You did beautifully. A few weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. Maria held it with shaking hands, afraid to open it. Lily stood beside her, eyes wide. Open it, Mama, please. Maria tore the envelope carefully and began to read. Her eyes filled with tears before she even finished the first paragraph. You did it, she whispered, smiling through the tears. You got in, Lily screamed with joy, jumping up and down. I got in? I really got in? Maria nodded, laughing. Yes, my love. You did it. They hugged tightly, both crying and laughing at the same time. When Mr. Anderson heard the news, he was overjoyed. He congratulated them in person and even brought a small gift, a beautiful new violin case with Lily's initials engraved on it. You've earned this, he said as he handed it to her. This is just the beginning of your journey. Lily ran her hand over the smooth leather, speechless. Thank you, she said softly. I'll take care of it forever. Maria stood nearby, feeling overwhelmed by everything that had happened. A few months ago, she was serving tables, trying to make ends meet, never imagining something like this could happen. Now her daughter was stepping into a new world, a world of opportunity and hope. The first rehearsal with the youth orchestra was a moment neither of them would ever forget. The large room was filled with young musicians tuning their instruments. The sound of violins, cellos, and flutes blended into a beautiful chaos. When Lily took her seat among them, Maria watched from the doorway, her heart swelling with pride. As the conductor lifted his baton, the music began. It was powerful, full, and alive. Lily played with all her heart, her bow moving gracefully, her face glowing with focus and joy. Mr. Anderson watched from the back of the room. He didn't say much, but his eyes told everything. He was proud, deeply proud. It wasn't just about the music anymore. It was about seeing what hope, kindness, and a little faith could do. After the rehearsal, Lily ran to him. Did you hear us? We sounded amazing. He laughed. I did. You were incredible. Maria joined them, smiling through happy tears. I don't know how to thank you enough, she said to him. You already have, he replied. You both reminded me what really matters. That evening, as they walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, Maria held her daughter's hand and thought about how far they had come. From a small restaurant table to a grand music hall, it felt like a miracle. And maybe she thought it was. Because sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can open doors to the biggest changes. One man's joke had become a young girl's dream, and that dream was now a melody that touched everyone who heard it. For Maria, it was no longer just about surviving. It was about watching her daughter soar. And for Lily, it was about believing that music could carry her anywhere, as long as she played from her heart. The years that followed were full of music, growth, and new beginnings. Lily's life slowly changed in ways she never could have imagined that day in the restaurant when everything began. What started as a simple moment of curiosity and kindness had turned into a journey that touched many lives, including her own mother's and Mr. Anderson's. Every morning, Lily would wake up early, her violin case always beside her bed. She had joined the youth orchestra, and her days were filled with rehearsals, performances, and classes. Though she was one of the youngest members, she worked hard to prove she belonged there. She practiced until her fingers hurt and sometimes even fell asleep with her violin in her lap. Maria continued working at the restaurant, but things felt different now. Her heart was lighter. She would often hum the melodies she heard her daughter play, smiling as she wiped down tables or poured coffee. The customers, many of whom had seen the viral video months ago, would ask about Lily's progress. She's doing so well, Maria would say proudly. She's learning fast and playing with an orchestra now. Every word filled her with pride. She never tired of talking about her daughter's achievements. One quiet evening, while Maria was closing up the restaurant, Mr. Anderson stopped by. He often visited to check in, always humble and kind. How's our young musician? He asked, taking a seat near the counter. Maria smiled warmly. Busy as ever. She's playing a small solo next week at the City Hall. I still can't believe how fast everything has happened. Mr. Anderson nodded thoughtfully. She's earned every bit of it. I'm proud of her. And of you. Maria looked down, touched by his words. You gave her the chance, sir. Without you, none of this would have happened. He shook his head softly. No, Maria, you gave her the strength to chase her dream. I only helped open a door. She and you did the rest. For a moment they sat in silence, both thinking about how far things had come. There was a quiet understanding between them, a sense that life had connected them for a reason. The following week, the City Hall performance arrived. It was a grand event with guests from across the city. Lily stood backstage, her heart pounding. She could hear the murmur of the audience, the soft rustle of papers, and the tuning of instruments. When she peeked out from behind the curtain, she spotted her mother sitting near the front, her hands clasped together tightly. Mr. Anderson sat beside her, dressed neatly as always, a proud yet gentle smile on his face. As Lily waited for her turn, she remembered all the times she'd practiced late at night, all the small mistakes and all the encouragement her mother had given her. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "Play from the heart like always." When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage. The lights felt warm and the hall seemed endless. For a brief second she froze, but then she looked at her mother, who smiled and nodded. That was all the courage she needed. She lifted her violin and began to play. The melody was soft at first, almost fragile, but as she continued, her bow moved with confidence. Her fingers danced across the strings and the sound filled the entire hall. The audience leaned forward, drawn in by the emotion in every note. It wasn't just music, it was a story. Her story. By the time the last note faded, the hall was silent. Then a wave of applause erupted. People stood clapping and cheering. Maria had tears streaming down her cheeks, and Mr. Anderson wiped his eyes quietly, smiling with pride. After the performance, people came up to Lily to congratulate her. Some said her music made them cry. Others said it reminded them of hope. She didn't know what to say except, "Thank you." She felt overwhelmed, but in a good way. Backstage, Maria hugged her tightly. "You were amazing," she whispered. "I'm so proud of you." Mr. Anderson joined them, smiling. "That was one of the most beautiful performances I've ever heard," he said sincerely. "You have a gift, Lily. Never forget that." "Thank you," she said softly, still holding her violin. "I'll keep practicing. I want to be even better." He nodded. "You will be." From that night on, more opportunities came. Invitations to play at events, local concerts, and even small recordings. People admired not just her talent, but her sincerity and humility. She never acted like she was better than anyone. She just played because she loved it. At home, life was still simple. Maria didn't suddenly become rich, and Lily didn't let success change her. They still shared small dinners, laughed about silly things, and spent quiet evenings together. Their apartment was filled with laughter and the gentle sound of violin music echoing through the walls. One afternoon, Lily came home carrying an envelope. "Mama," she said, her eyes shining, "I got invited to a summer program abroad. It's for young musicians." Maria's hands trembled slightly as she opened the letter. "Abroad?" she repeated, her voice a mix of excitement and fear. "That's so far away." Lily nodded. "It's in Europe. It's only for 2 months, but I'll get to learn from real professionals." Mrs. Bennett said it's a huge opportunity. Maria stared at her for a long moment. Her heart was full of pride, but also worry. 2 months is a long time, sweetheart. "I'll miss you." "I'll miss you too, Mama," Lily said softly. "But I'll call every day. And when I come back, I'll be even better." Maria smiled through tears. "Of course you will. You're my brave girl." When Mr. Anderson heard about the program, he offered to help with the travel arrangements. "It's an opportunity too good to pass up," he said gently. "She's earned it." Maria tried to protest, but he simply smiled. "Let me do this. It's a joy to help her grow." A few weeks later, they stood at the airport. Lily clutched her violin case and hugged her mother tightly. "I'll make you proud, Mama," she whispered. "You already have," Maria said, brushing away tears. Before boarding, she turned to Mr. Anderson. "Thank you for everything," he nodded. "Go make music, Lily. Let the world hear what you have to say." And then she was gone, walking through the gate, her small figure disappearing into the crowd. The weeks that followed were quiet. The apartment felt emptier without Lily's music, but Maria often caught herself smiling when she thought about her daughter performing somewhere far away, bringing joy to people who didn't even know her name a year ago. Every few days, a video call would come through. "Mama, guess what?" Lily would say excitedly. "We played in a big hall today." "Everyone clapped so loud." Maria would laugh and wipe her eyes. "I knew they would. You were born to do this." When summer ended, Lily returned home, her eyes brighter, her posture taller, her music richer. She hugged her mother for a long time, whispering, "I missed you so much." "I missed you too," Maria said, smiling. "Now play me something. I want to hear what you've learned." Lily smiled, lifted her violin, and began to play. The sound was more mature now, deeper, fuller, but it still carried that same warmth. The melody filled their little apartment just like it used to, but this time it felt like the start of something even bigger. Mr. Anderson continued to be part of their lives, though he never asked for recognition. He became almost like family, a quiet supporter who showed up for every important moment. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, he said softly, "You know, I've been thinking about something. I'd like to start a small foundation, one that helps young musicians who can't afford lessons or instruments, and I'd like to name it after Lily's first song, the one she played in the restaurant." Maria's eyes widened. "That's such a beautiful idea," he smiled. "It's time to give others the same chance she had." Years passed, and Lily grew into a talented young woman, performing on stages across the country. People admired her not only for her skill but for her kindness and humility. Whenever interviewers asked her how she started, she always smiled and said, "It began with one small moment, a man's joke, a mother's love, and a dream I refused to let go of." Maria often sat in the audience, still clapping the loudest, tears in her eyes every single time, and Mr. Anderson, older now, watched quietly, pride shining in his gaze. The story that began as a simple act of kindness had turned into something far greater, a reminder that one small choice can change many lives. And through every song she played, Lily carried their story, the waitress's daughter, the man who believed, and the music that brought them all together.